Hello, Vlogalogue. How are you doing? Hope you're well. So it's time to talk. I just recorded 2 other videos, and the AC has been off the whole time. Looks like I'm at like 30 minutes of recording, so oh my god. Okay. What will we give up for the sake of the planet? First, I kind of have to. So the thing is, I mean, Alex was talking about the how beef requires water, and water is a problem, and that sort of thing. Probably true. There's a big problem with the climate change and related stuff. In that there's a big sort of it's really hard to know what is accurate. I think it's reasonable to go, okay, yes, climate change is a real thing, but to know that, oh, well, the biggest contributor is this versus that, or this is the way that we could fix things, or this is the way we could not, is really hard to figure out. And I think there's a big problem with messaging from the scientific community on that. Granted, it's not their fault. There are way too many vested interests in figuring out what we do. The one thing that bothered me is I looked on the Good Stuff video, talked about all this stuff, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go look. I'm going to look at the sources. There were no sources, which I think is just a big, okay. Either I take it on faith that everything that you said in here was accurate, or I say none of this was accurate. This is a propaganda piece. I mean, because it was the group has an interest. Everybody has an interest, so it's hard to figure out. Like, I'd like to look at the peer-reviewed stuff. There's also a big problem with that, in that the open access movement is taking way too damn long. It is really hard to go and say, let me look at the freaking data. I have to pay like $30 to get the PDF for one source, or I could listen to some particular person's spin on it. Which isn't to say that everyone always has kind of this secret agenda, but everyone invariably has their own way that they present information, and so it's very difficult. I think this is with given how important this is purported to be, which I'm not disputing, but given how purported and how timely this sort of stuff is, make all of the information available. All of it. Open access, everything. No journals. I mean, if we're going to die in 10 years because we're not turning off the lights, get every peer-reviewed thing out there for everyone to look at and make the information available. Granted, I'm, talking out my bottom here. I don't think that it's the case. If we don't turn off the lights, we will die in 10 years. But, yes. So that bugs me. As far as what we give, the other thing is that in the way it was presented, I mean, this is part of it, is that, they talked about the amount of water that is used to get a pound of beef. No sources, don't know where that comes from. I don't know that it's not true. It very well might be true. I don't know. And I know that there are plenty of reasons to say, I mean, the FDA is a terrible has been bad about stuff. I don't know, so many reasons. But they also didn't talk about what the full costs of the alternative are, so I don't know. So ultimately, I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch this and, look at it as a piece of entertainment and something that's, here's something that we can think about, but without any sort of haste to pursue that avenue for fixing problems. What are we going to fix, though? What will we give up to save the planet? I don't know. I think we are making... cars are a big thing. They're outside of my field of expertise at this point. I haven't driven for years for medical reasons. I live in a city. Every so often I get the urge to just look at like those carbon footprint sites, and they're always like, you're super awesome. I'm like, oh, all right. This is what happens when you just like never leave your apartment and live in a city that is, ultimately fairly efficient even though it really doesn't seem like it, but just because of the amount of people packed into such a small area using a lot of public transit, like, wow, you've saved a lot. But the other thing is the way that I impact. I mean, obviously, I could eat less. That's going to help me far more than it's going to help the planet. Things like electronics, I think, are actually, that's a no. This is a thing. I think the approach of giving up, or the question of what are we going to give up, is perhaps the wrong one. One of the things that I find really fascinating, and I think Rory Sutherland gave a talk where he mentioned this, is that we've had this for a long time. We've had this economy that was strictly tied to physical goods. That your wealth was related to how much food you had in store and that sort of thing. And what has changed relatively recently, or at least scaled up incredibly recently, is intangible value. The fact that basically I have not made anything. I've been working as a software developer for years and years, and I've not made any real thing. I have shifted the order of, I have shifted the sign on a whole bunch of bytes. It hasn't created anything. It hasn't destroyed anything. I haven't farmed anything. I haven't made anything to, the result, though, is that I have created value and I can be compensated for that. And to the extent that we are able to create more intangible value assets, we're doing things in a more eco-friendly way. If marketing is entirely creating perceived value rather than any sort of actual value, and this is also a big thing about currency and fiat currency. Anyway, but I think so. The idea of what do we have to give up to make things better is perhaps not the right approach. That maybe it is a matter of what are the things that we can do to move ourselves to a place where the majority of the things that we consume and use outside of the bare necessities for sustenance, nutrition, etc., can be delivered in a non-physical way. If we all lived in VR, if we were the Matrix, we'd probably be super efficient and probably super green, except for the big robot overlords. But the idea is like I'm suspended in a tank and I'm living around in VR, I'm not consuming much in the way of planetary resources. In fact, that entire VR thing can be powered by solar easily. If we could basically say we're going to take like a whole state, just be like, that's the solar farm, would have so much power. So I think, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I guess that's my answer, is that I don't know that we have to give up anything. No, I shouldn't. I think that it's not a matter, when we look at this problem, we need to not necessarily frame it in from the perspective of sacrifice, but also what are the ways that we can improve our lives in a manner that doesn't have a negative impact on the planet. I don't know, just my thoughts. I hope you're doing well, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.